Okay, hey everybody, welcome to this week's Honeit podcast. I'm excited to introduce you to Dom Farnan. Dom is the founder and CEO of DotConnect, a really innovative recruiting firm that supports all sorts of roles across the United States. We've been working with Dom for a while now, and I'm going to unpack a little bit about Dom's history in recruitment. She's had a really incredible journey, and she's building up DotConnect again. And so we'll hear about this adventure. Dom, welcome to the Honeit podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Nick, for having me. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, we always like to start just kind of hear the genesis story of how you got into recruitment. Maybe it's not a profession that everybody knows about, but how did you fall into it, or how did you get into it? And then would definitely love to hear about how you founded your own agency.
Yeah, absolutely. If you've heard me or you've read my story before, I started recruiting when I was really young. I was 17. I graduated high school early. My neighbor had a company. I wanted to work in a real company and not at a pizza place. So I approached him and said, do you need an intern? So he hired me. Long story short, when my internship was done and I was done with high school, I went to the head of HR and he said, we're hiring recruiters. Do you want to do that? I had no idea what that was. I'm like, I do want to do that. Teach me everything. And so I had an amazing team of mentors that I work with for like 5 years at one company, followed them around for quite a bit, and then moved into consulting when I was 22 and worked for this amazing woman who had kind of a similar company to how I structured Dot. And so, through that time was a solopreneur recruiter, spent some time in-house, spent time consulting for many companies. At the end of 2018, I had 9 contract recruiting gigs that I was working across a handful of clients, and decided it was too much for me and a few people part-time. So went to all those clients, pitched them on hiring a team of recruiters. I didn't have a team at the time, kind of winging it and just going, all right, I think I can build a team. Most of them agreed, and then I built a team of recruiters, and that's what started the initial team of DotConnect.
Fantastic. So you were doing a lot with a little, spread thin across 9 clients. I can only imagine the coordination and the logistics to be able to do that. But that's where that shift from contingent, hey, if you find the right candidate, we'll get a fee, to, hey, what if we operate as an embedded kind of extension of your company? Tell us a little bit about that, because I think that's your current model, right? Is that the embedded or fractional piece?
So the current model, I guess, is very akin to an embedded RPO type model. I actually have never been a contingent recruiter. So even when I was contracting for all of those clients, I was a traditional flat hourly rate recruiter. I think I tried contingent recruiting once and quickly learned it was not for me. I didn't like having someone else control my ability to generate money for the high quality work I was doing. So I've always stuck with being paid for the work that we do. And I've had to adapt that, because when we started Dot, I had a lot of big clients and enterprise, so price points were reflected as such. We would charge flat monthly rates. I also learned to cap my recs, because sometimes we'd go into a client and they would just, pound my recruiter with 40 recs the first day instead of really thinking about it strategically. It's like, no wonder those recs weren't getting filled, right? Because we didn't have any support. Now we do a lot more work with seed through Series B startups. So the volumes are much lower and our price points are much lower, just because it reflects the type of work that we're doing today. So for example, before we might not have taken only one role for a company. Now, if you're a seed stage startup and you only have one role to fill for 6 months, we'll take a crack at that. We'll probably fill it in 4 to 6 weeks. We pause and then we roll back on and off projects. And even this year, that's probably happened 5 times. And so my belief is that when you get in and you do really high quality work and you create impact efficiently, then they'll come back to you and they don't want to, change that brain trust and continuity. And so it's created a flywheel of revenue for us as I rebuild Dot from January of earlier this year.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like the pricing model, and I think that model makes sense to companies too. They don't like the 30% fees can add up very quickly. You get 2 fees in a month and you're like, whoa, what just happened, right? And so, I think that model of show your best practices, you help them with things maybe besides just forwarding a resume,
Yeah.
right? You're
Yeah.
doing more than just sending a resume. You're helping them with strategy,
Yeah.
because you're essentially retained and you're not competing against other agencies. You can help them with branding and
Yeah.
marketing and all of this stuff to get the right folks to hear about the role and come inbound, which you can't do if you're competing with other agencies and only get paid if your person gets the job. So
Yeah.
we have this conversation a lot with companies about working with an embedded or RPO or a retained search, either any of those. You get to hire the right person regardless of the source. And so
Yeah.
you're tapping all of those channels for your client, right? Not just saying, oh, hire this person, hire this person, hire this person.
Right. I think that one misnomer, and I heard this week, so it was a good reminder. Someone said to me, well, if you're on a retainer, wouldn't you just take forever to fill that job and get your retainer? I've heard this twice this week. And I was like, I don't know what world you're living in, but no, absolutely not. I said the whole point is to go in and really establish your trust and credibility and deliver on that work quickly, high impact. And even if it means you're filling that job in the first month, which is rare, we all know that because there's some ramp time. But even if you are, that creates that recurring revenue where people are going to be blown away and go, oh my gosh, that was the best experience ever. I want to call them back. Anytime I have a role that I need filled, I'll use them because it was so good. So I always sink in with the intention that we want to go in as a sprint and really work together as partners with our hiring leaders on the other side and fill the role as quickly as we can. We're not looking to milk a retainer over several months, as well as when we're running your process, we're meeting with the teams so regularly, weekly, either on Slack, on Zoom, whatever they prefer. And we are running this partnered process. So it's not like in 4 months, we've made 20 grand, let's say, in retainers. And then we're like, yeah, your rec's not filled. Sorry. We're not going to come to you like that. It's every week, what we're doing. And if we need to iterate our process together, then that's what we do. So in that project, you're also getting like the market intel from us. If we're going, yeah, this job description isn't fitting, your salary range doesn't work, like we're bringing all that intel back to you.
Yeah, I think you're right. The other piece, like it's the incentives are aligned in that way too. In that, when I went from external, I started in external recruiting, where again, commission based. You're only good as your last placement. You only get paid if you make that fee. So you're doing everything you can to get your candidate hired. You go in-house and work in corporate TA, and then you quickly realize, oh my gosh, like blocking a bad hire or stopping a bad hire, you're looking for yellow flags and red flags. That could do more good to stop the hire than to push the hire, right? And so your incentives change as you go in-house. I think this model of RPO embedded, fractional, that goes back to this line of, hey, we're going to help you try to hire the right person for the job. And it doesn't have to be our person. And hey, we're gonna keep an eye out and look for blockers. And oh no, I wouldn't. Watch out for that. Watch out for this. You are that consultative partner simply because the incentives are aligned.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that we tend to do more than just come in and fill your rec. A lot of times now, at the stage that we're working at, we're educating hiring managers. I'm doing interview training within the first few weeks to get everybody reaching to the beat of the same drum kind of thing. And all of that is not something extra that we charge. If I was to create standalone products in that, I probably could make a lot of money. But for me, it's really like getting everyone aligned at the onset. And we just do that as part of the service that we offer.
Wow. Yeah. No, I think it's fascinating. And you're right. All of those other things that you do would be typically above and beyond what a typical contingent firm would do. And, we're still kind of blown away. Sometimes we work with clients and we see what agencies send, and it's amazing in 2024 to still see a submission that's simply a resume and 3 bullet points.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I mean, that's 25% fee. That seems like a lot now, right?
I get peeved when you're cold DMing me that you have a perfect candidate for me and we've never met and we don't know each other. That drives me nuts. Or our hiring manager will say, well, agencies email me all day that they have candidates and you can't find any. It's like, okay, let's look at that. Do you know them? How do you trust their judgment? How do you even know that they're betting against your profile? So I see that as well.
That concept of MPC, or most placeable candidate marketing, this came up in a thread the other day on LinkedIn where, it's a pretty tried and true method in terms of like, if you have runner-up candidates, what do you do to remarket them to potential prospective clients? And it makes sense. I've talked to 3 great quality engineers, and you're looking for a quality engineer here. But what's interesting is like there's a wide range in which how people do that, right? Some will say, I really did talk to a person. Here's a blinded resume, perhaps, or here's, some will. I just read the other day or listened to a podcast the other day. There's firms that literally just go pull a random LinkedIn profile or two and send that over and say, what do you think about this? It's like, just total smoke and mirrors. Like and then, oh, by the way, that candidate's no longer available. Sorry, but now we have your rec. So I just feel like there's a lot of, going back to trust and transparency and credibility. There's all these things that we as an industry could be doing to really move that forward, right? And I, but it's tricky because you do need to stand out and you do need to differentiate. So, maybe we could shift a little bit, talk about maybe the current state of recruitment. Do you have a lot of recs you're working on? Are you looking for recs? I know the industry isn't, some companies have slowed down hiring, which then there's a ripple effect to external firms and RPOs who may not have as many recs to work on. What is your sense of the state of recruiting and hiring?
Yeah, so right now we have 10 clients that we're working with. Like I said, all seed through Series B. So company sizes from, I don't know, I'd say 10 to 100. That's kind of where we're working. Some have a head of HR, some have fractional HR as well, or maybe no HR at all, and they're just focused on some initial hiring. We probably have about 40 recs across those 10 clients. Some of my recruiters are fully embedded and dedicated just on one client because they're doing high volume hiring and have 10 hires a week that they're accountable for. Others are doing lower volume work. Maybe they have one rec across a couple of clients. Typically, we wouldn't do that. Back in busy times, all of my recruiters were dedicated on typically one recruiter, one client match, and one set of recs. Now, because we're so flexible with our model, we can pick up some of these smaller projects, roll on and off them, and have a senior level recruiter who can context switch and bounce between maybe a project or two, or a rec or two. They're all disparate, though. It's not like we have one rec that's the same across any of these clients. The clients are a wide range, so we can't really take one candidate and then present it to 5 different places because each industry we serve is different. Each client is unique. Each person has their own idea of what good looks like for them and their company, and they have different values. So we're seeing some work come back. I think this year we filled close to 100 roles. As a point of reference, last year we filled maybe 20. And in 2022, we filled close to 700. So it gets...
Wow. Well, there you go. I mean, quantifying that kind of 700 to 20 to 100. I mean,
we're trending in the right direction for sure. And it's been a grind. I feel like I'm rebuilding Dot 2.0 brick by brick, and I feel like every piece of business we've received, it's come through the same channels as before. A lot of referrals, even candidates that get placed will then, want to bring us into where they land, that kind of thing. But I'm pulling a lot of different levers. I'm networking, I'm online, I'm offline, I'm creating content, I'm being of service and doing stuff for free with people and just, sharing wisdom and knowledge and coaching. I'm now doing some hiring workshops on the company side and then also serving candidates with an offer. Like next week, I'm running a 5-day challenge for people who are looking for new roles. And I'm spending an hour a day helping them really strategize on this based on how I run my own business development campaigns and stuff. So it's been quite an interesting time, but I feel like a lot of it is around mindset and being able to stay focused and call in on the energy that you really want to channel in one direction. What your focus is on, your attention will then go to and your energy goes to. So if you're in a really negative mind space, then it's only going to create more of that for yourself. That's my belief.
Yeah, I see. I mean, I see I feel like there's an uptick in sentiment on LinkedIn just in terms of, I got a new job as a recruiter. Like people are starting to find either in-house roles or announcing new roles that they've started or advertising jobs that they're hiring recruiters. So those are good signals, but I do know there's just a lot of recruiters that are kind of out of work or maybe still trying to refigure out kind of where their future is in this industry, because it does seem to be shifting, right? This model of contingent and retained to more embedded or fractional,
Yeah.
less internal TA roles, maybe with new tooling and more efficiencies, more
Yeah.
we can do more with less. And then
Yeah.
there's a ripple. I see a lot of companies, folks coming from corporate TA and then starting their own agencies, like saying, "Hey, I see how much money, or I see the grass is greener on the other side. I'm going to try my hand at external recruiting." But it's kind of a tricky time. Where do you see the future going? I mean, maybe we could shift the topic of to say new tools, new technology, AI. Obviously, can't ignore it.
Yeah.
How are what are your thoughts on AI? Is your team incorporating it in certain
Yeah.
capacities? Are you staying away from it? Where are you
Yeah.
at?
I think I probably was a late adopter for AI. I know for me back in 2018, when I was still very much hands on, I mean, I am again now, but in 2018, when I was running all these clients myself, it was like spreadsheets and old school, just manual. And that was a lot of my brain drain and me working 7 days a week trying to keep everything organized. Then in 2019, I brought the team in. We tried to streamline some stuff, but even then, it wasn't how it is now. I feel like now, even with tools like Honeit and other things that are popping up, scheduling stuff that's really helpful. Um, it's been, I mean, I'm an elder millennial. So for me, like, I'm not resistant to technology, but it really takes me a while to like get up and running. Like we were saying earlier, when I started using Honeit, Andy had to micromanage me for a week or two to get me up and running. He's like, "I don't know why you're stalling. Just take a weekend and set this up for yourself." And I'm like, "Okay, I got it. I got it." But finally, when I did, I'm like, where has this been my whole life? So it was great. And then I was able to bring on some of my team members again and get them all plugged in. And Justin on my team was telling me last week he probably did 40 or 50 interviews, and it felt like nothing because he didn't have to do all the admin work. So he's like, "You could just load me down. I could probably take another 50 interviews because it doesn't feel, as much of a brain drain," which is great. And our clients love it too because they get to hear the interviews. They can really tell, from someone's energy, like very quickly, moreover than just sending your normal bullet pointed list or whatever. And I found now that it's even a selling point. So I like to weave in the tech stack that we use when I'm talking to clients, just to show that, yeah, we're not your same recruiters. We are investing in technology and trying to streamline so that really we're optimized to spend the most time with hiring managers and strategy and then candidates. Like that's where my team's time is best spent. It's not writing notes, doing admin. We all know recruiters aren't good at admin. That's why we have coordinators as a separate role and we have sourcing as a separate role and whatever. Even with my sourcers now, I have them continuously learning all of the new AI tools. I have a short list of a tech stack that they want to explore more and possibly invest in. We talk about that in discovery calls with clients. So I'm not averse to it at all. I think my earlier career recruiters are really in it. I mean, my son's 10. He wrote a book with ChatGPT and he read it to me and like designed it with Canva AI and like all this stuff. So I guess it's just part of our life now.
Yeah, I have three young daughters, and they're one's now in seventh grade, so she's starting to get into homework and tools and things like that for projects. But yeah, she was using Canva the other day for a yearbook design contest that she actually won, which I thought was amazing. Like, but using Canva instead of say PowerPoint or whatever you would have used in the past to design something like that. So modern stack, and then I'll show them, we like Legos. I'll be like, design a Lego set based in Costa Rica. 5 seconds, and it shows the box. It's like, whoa, that'd be an amazing Lego set. So,
Yeah.
They're having fun with stuff like that, but I don't think they realize that that is literally bleeding edge. That's never been possible because they're used to iPads and some of that stuff already. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I think yeah, it's fun to see innovation on sourcing side of things. I feel like there's always been a lot of innovation on sourcing, right? The Seekouts and the HireEZs and Source Whales. I think you mentioned a new interesting AI tool that's indexed all of the LinkedIn profiles, and you can now just do a natural language query, and it'll figure it out. And
GPT, that's a good one.
Yeah, so we're seeing a few of those pop up, and then where Honet's focusing, we're trying to pick up kind of that middle ground of scheduling, screening, note taking, submissions, write ups, feedback, right, and then pushing the data into the ATS as like the
Yeah.
filing system. But fun to hear that your team is freeing up their day to be able to talk to more people. I think that at the end of the day is if recruiters can focus on the high level stuff, the high
Yeah.
value stuff, which is the
Yeah.
talking to people, whether it's talking to more clients or talking to more candidates,
Yeah.
that's great. Is when you don't have to then spend 45 minutes after a conversation trying to then do something with that conversation.
I remember once I was working with my old boss, Iris, who hired me in consulting. She was my hardest boss. Now she's one of my best friends. And I get why she was hard because I was the youngest person she hired back in the day. And I hadn't worked for her for a while, but we had worked together for like 10 years on and off. So she had these candidate write ups that were like novels. They were probably 10 pages long. They were so robust because they did executive search. They charged tons of money. I was more junior on her team. And I remember as I was like getting back into it, I think it was 2016, I did a write up. And I thought it was great, but I was a little rusty. So I sent it to her. She had an editor that would read it and review it, and then she would stamp it. She sent it back to me. She's like, "This is terrible. You need to redo this whole thing and you need to re-interview the candidate." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, are you kidding me?" It took me like probably 8 hours to rewrite the thing to make it up to her quality standard. I'm like, "This is nuts." And now I just think about if she's not in recruiting anymore, but I'm like, damn, if she was still in recruiting and we had all these things that we have now, like what would that be like, and would she really be able to relinquish even her control aspect of it? I don't know, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I think we hear that from time to time. I mean, people, they just any professional, has certain things that they do and they get stuck in their ways, and maybe they just get used to doing things. We have people who still like say, "Oh, do you use Calendly or any sort of scheduling functionality?" And they're like, "No." I'm like, "Well, that's interesting because that's been around for 10 years and it sure does save a lot of time. We have it built into Honeit, but like you're not
Yeah.
using any scheduling tools in recruiting?" They're like, "Nope." And then we talk about this, the future of note taking, and we're like,
Yeah.
I like manually typing notes. And I'm like, "Well, you type notes you type notes?" And like, "No, I just write it down on the resume."
Yeah. So many
I'm
of my
like,
recruiters
"You
used to
still write
write it.
notes on a resume? I mean, I get it. Maybe you remember it better, but like, what if
No.
you didn't have to remember it and you could just search it and rediscover it and it's all data?" And it's like,
Well, I had recruiters on my team a few years ago that would write notes and then they would have to type their notes for the hiring managers. I'm like, what in the heck? Like, no wonder you're exhausted and you can't take on more recs because it's so much extra work.
yeah, I think, and now, so note taking is almost like kind of table stakes now, right? Nobody wants to type notes, and that's been around for several years now. I think what we're starting to see now, what we're excited about, is like the power of voice, right? And we talked a little bit about that, kind of know talent when you hear it as a recruiter, when you're talking to someone and they tell you something amazing, you're like, "Oh my gosh, I wish the hiring manager could have heard
Yeah.
that," right? Or, you know, my script, whether I'm scribbling notes, typing notes, or an AI is typing my notes, that's still not sufficient to like cut the interview process in half.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
mean? So we're now at this kind of future, which we're excited about, is this concept of interview collaboration
Hmm.
between a recruiter and a hiring team. So now a recruiter can actually perform a really great interview, hang up the phone or end the video call, and like you're doing, share that data with an entire hiring panel.
Yeah.
And this is now, as I think TA is reinventing ourselves in terms of where do we end and where's the hiring process or interview process start. I think recruiters have an opportunity to really take more of the interview process on to free up the hiring team, right? But still drive it. You know what I mean? Still
Yeah.
drive the process. Have you seen that with in terms of your flow? Again, you're embedded, so you have a little more connection, say, with the hiring team. But when you present a candidate, are you sending it to multiple stakeholders, perhaps, and then they can all review it, or how does that
Yeah,
work?
and in most cases, so for example, we have this small little AI startup right now. There's 10 people. We're on a hiring Slack together, and myself and Justin are working this project, and we will send the Honeit recording for our candidates, and they can all listen in. Some not it's not all relevant, but like some of them, we're looking for a hardware engineer. The software engineers can listen to the conversation. They may or may not chime in on it, but at least they're all getting the flavor for the candidate. Similarly, there's another client I'm working with on a BDR role, and they have before the hiring manager screen, another person, a peer screen. So I send it to this peer and the hiring manager in Slack again. I mean, I drop it in Ashby as well, but usually just Slack so that they can keep up with it.
Yeah, that's great. That's one to many. One really great interview, multiple people can hear it. I think the next level that we're starting to see companies take is when, they can start to create like competency-based or skill-based questions.
Mm-hmm.
And then to your point, like you might ask a couple questions about hardware, you might ask a couple questions about software, you might ask a couple questions about core values, or maybe a
Yeah.
behavioral-based question.
Yeah.
If you share that link with the 5 people, each of them could potentially know which answers should they listen to, right? And maybe
totally.
the CEO or the founder listens to the core values questions because they're trying to find the people with the grit or the resilience or whatever they're looking for. So that's an interesting way we're starting to slice and dice it, where interview panelists might just be able to listen to a few select interview answers that are their domain expertise.
The other way we haven't used Honeit yet that I'm excited to try is recording the kickoffs and having the hiring managers answer the questions and then sending that to the candidates versus us doing that pitch. I think that would really speed up things too, because we are still, doing the warm up and the pitch of the client when we're talking to the candidate. And so I think you shared that when we demoed you guys a while ago. It's like, record the kickoff with the hiring manager and then send that in your first reach out or second reach out or whatever. And I like that. We have to still try that.
Yeah, we're seeing, even just for internal alignment, that can be really powerful, even if not sharing it externally with candidates. But now it only takes one person to be on that intake call with a hiring manager, capture all the information that's not on the job description, and then share that through Slack with your recruiter or sourcer. And now everybody's aligned, can hear it directly from the source, just for zero misinterpretation at the agency level. But then, yeah, you're right. You could create another version of that. And we're seeing some incredible case studies of increasing response rates, right, from passive candidates, because we're giving first. We're saying, hey, here's the role, here's the hiring team. You can see if you like to work with this person before you spend 20 minutes talking to our team. And again, as a retained recruiter or an embedded recruiter, you have the ability to share more maybe about the client up front than you might if you're contingent.
Yeah, totally.
So it's a real advantage. And then the other side of it, we're seeing, from an inclusion standpoint, if you're talking with an amazing and a diverse hiring manager, you can showcase that diverse hiring manager to attract more diverse candidates. That's the best way to cast a better, wider, and go to market. So let us know how that goes once you do your first call, and we can show you how to create those job previews. But maybe we could end just to talk a little bit about any advice to, say, recruiters out there who are maybe in between roles, or looking for that next opportunity, considering a switch to outside or in-house. You've been on both sides of the fence there. Any just advice we can give to folks who are kind of struggling right now or kind of anxious about the future? What are you seeing?
Yeah, so a couple of pieces of advice. I would say that it's okay to reimagine what your role can be. Like, just because you only ever recruited, let's say, for example, doesn't mean that that's what you need to keep doing. So I think like permission to explore new things is first. For me, I like to listen to, there's a really good meditation called the Life Visioning Meditation by Michael Beckwith. It's 13 minutes on YouTube. And it's really helpful because it helps you kind of get out of your own way and think expansively. I think sometimes when you've been in a profession for a really long time, even like myself, you've seen the ups and downs and the economic cycles that we've dealt with. Last year, I thought a lot about, like, do I even still want to do this? I don't know. I had to get rid of my entire team, help most of them find other jobs, place them in clients. I was so depressed in July. I thought I was the biggest loser CEO. And I had to take a minute and just really sit with myself to see if this is something I wanted to do. And if I wanted to climb this third mountain again and go back and like do Dot 2.0 again after what I had built and then it fell off a cliff. I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I have that in me. So I took the pressure off myself of thinking I had to do that. And I started exploring different things. I started doing coaching. I just started getting expansive and thinking like, let me try on these different types of roles and see what's interesting to me. Even now, I do recruiting again, which I love. And I'm a lot more re-energized by it, having been a leader of recruiters and done training of recruiters and all of that. Now working with these smaller clients and being way more flexible than I was before. Before I was like 6 to 12 month agreements. This is the price. And it was very rigid because we had to be that way because we were doing enterprise stuff. Now it's like, I know who I want to work with, cool people that are great partners who need our help, that are open to feedback, who are good to work with good values that are aligned. But I'm flexible. My contracts are flexible. I'm very open on a lot of how I work with people. And so I think it's fair to like think about yourself and don't apply the same rules. Like throw the old rules out because everything's thrown out right now. You know, we're getting through what feels like this weird COVID-y time. I think 2025, even mentally for a lot of people, I know for me, I'm kind of looking forward to this energy shift. We're getting through this election year. There's a lot of heavy energy around that. So once you get through those things, just like invite yourself to think expansively and not try and solve the same problem with these old tactics, you know, like there is no rules here. You can create a role for yourself however you want. So maybe you were a recruiter in an enterprise for a long time and you're over that. You're over corporate. Okay, cool. Well, then let's productize how you show up in the world. Maybe it's a fraction of the cost, but you're working half the time and you have stuff to help you speed up your day and automate things. And so I think my invitation for people who are listening is like, you get to create the reality that you want to see, but it starts with your mindset, you know, and really, the meditation's so good because it'll allow you to get just expansive on it and maybe drop into a little bit of, internal dialogue around what you want to do. And it's also okay to just say, I don't want to do this anymore. You know, I had those moments and that's okay too. So I think you get to take the pressure off. I think when you try and apply like old world tactics and the old world rules of solving problems today, it's just not going to work. And so that's even for me. I tested all this stuff out. We've landed on right now what's working: small companies, more flexibility, lower price points, and really staying aligned with like, we don't want to work with everybody. So cool. That's what's working. I'm following that energy and maybe it'll shift, but for now it's been a lot of fun and it's given me a little bit of I don't know, a renewed sense of purpose and direction and confidence. I got my confidence knocked out of me when I thought I had this great, growing, amazing business with this big team that I loved and this culture that we were building that was thriving. And then to see that go off of a cliff and not hear from clients that I had worked with for 20 years. I literally still haven't heard from people that I worked with and supported for 2 years. To me, it was hurtful. I had to get over that and just go, okay, well, first of all, nobody's thinking about me because those are facts. Everyone's thinking about themselves and protecting their income and their role. So nothing personal. And secondly, just really going, okay, what is in my control? The only thing in my control is my energy and my response to all of this. I can't will my way into people getting back to me. I can't will my way into people responding to my job applications, you know, so you really just have to stay focused and really keep your internal landscape healthy and do the things that you need to do for that first and foremost. And then I believe that the energy starts to shift. So it's been interesting because this month I decided I'm not going to drink. So I don't drink a lot, but I drink. And I made a commitment to myself. I'm going to do sober September. I'm going to see how this goes. And the feedback I've been getting from people who've been in and around me is just amazing. So much so that I'm like, oh, maybe I just don't drink anymore. Maybe this is my new vibe because I'm seeing more opportunities. I'm seeing new opportunities. I'm partnering with people and just things shift. So I would encourage people who are maybe feeling down about some stuff right now to just really focus on you and tune out all this noise. You can't control any of that. The market's going to come back. It always does. This time it's taken longer than it feels like it has before. You know, it's very boomerang in our world, but at the same time, like create opportunities for yourself, however you want to do it. You know, and maybe it's like cutting down and changing how you were doing work before. Maybe you're not a full cycle recruiter. You only do this one thing. You price it however you want to price it, and then you go and work your network. I don't know. There's a lot of different ways to come up with how to show up creatively, but you don't have to apply the same old world tools to this.
Wonderful advice, Dom. I mean, There's a lot packed in there, but I couldn't agree more. And I think it's a chance to look inside and rethink everything. And I love your point about kind of there are no rules right now. It is
Yeah, that's
a
it. Like,
blank
take
slate
the
for the
pressure off.
industry. It's take the pressure off
Yeah.
yourself, feeling you have to fit a certain mold or do a certain thing, because there's a lot more flexibility out there. The deck chairs are shifting in this whole industry. So creating a new model, create a new business model, create a new entity, and a new approach, a new angle, like all of that is fair game. And we're seeing a lot of companies try to kind of reinvent themselves and think about differentiation in ways they've never have. So, but I think at the personal level, to your point, we can do it at the personal level too, not just at the company level. So
Yeah.
everybody, Dom Farnan, thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure to chat with you, and we really appreciate the partnership. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Dom.
Thanks. Bye.